Situation, new job application. Status, you put together an enticing CV that convinced the company to invite you over for an interview, or maybe via Skype, it's the same. They will ask you to tell them about yourself, why you want the job, why they should choose you, blah, blah, blah. At some point of time in the interview, they will ask you about your weaknesses. What do you do? Are you prepared for this part? Let me help you. Hi there, it's Tasso. Hey, make no mistake, this is the weakness question, of the most important parts of the interview. If you get this right, you are very likely to get the job. Most interviewees do not feel very comfortable with this question, which makes sense because who wants to shoot themselves in the foot? Why would you tell the person you expect to hire you something negative about yourself, right? You give them reasons to say no and reject you. Understandable. But that's why most ultimately unsuccessful applicants shy away from giving away such information as they fear the consequences. When I was younger, meaning in the early stages of my career, I too was very insecure with that question. And as I had no one to teach me better, I tried to make weaknesses sound, less weak. So I said things like, I'm impatient, hoping this to come across as I'm ambitious and I can't wait for things to get done. Or things like, my weakness? Maybe I work too hard. Again, hoping this to send the message that I'm a high performer. Basically trying to mask weakness as strengths somehow. Needless to say that I didn't have much luck with those answers. Why? Because I didn't give hiring managers and HR people what they were looking for when asking for the question. And what exactly is it that those decision makers are looking for, Tasso? You might ask yourself. I will tell you. They check for your level of self-awareness. Self-what? Self-awareness, your drive to actually want to know yourself better. But wait, I'm not asking you or giving you permission to downplay yourself either. This is not about telling them that you are rarely punctual or that you procrastinate often or that you have difficulties managing your emotions or that you struggle with depression. Far from it. Self-awareness is not about knowing all your limitations. That's the first step. Self-awareness, most importantly, is about what those limitations taught you about yourself and what you decided to do to overcome them. It doesn't mean that you are over them yet. There's no need for that. If you were, there wouldn't be weaknesses anymore. Make sense? Important is that you have identified what is holding you back and have decided to take action to eliminate them because you want to advance in your career, right? The most powerful way to share this is through stories, through actual examples. And because you can't just simply think of powerful stories in the moment of the interview where you're stressed like hell anyways, and making them up is a definite no-go, you better prepare for them upfront. So that's the action item for today's video, my dear friend. I want you to spend some time and think about something that would demonstrate your intention to eliminate a weakness, to address it in a way that it has no power over you any longer. Reflect on a critical tipping point in your career or life that forced you to jump over your shadow in order to do something you were not able to do before. Here's an example from my own corporate history, if it helps. Most of the time, I ran my projects without being appropriately inclusive. What I mean by that is that I was not consulting relevant people whom I should have consulted. And so I was constantly confronted with pushback and delays and rejection. Originally, I didn't understand why that happened. After all, I really believed in my work being extraordinary. So as I wanted to get the job done and not constantly face backlash, I needed to dig deeper. After a bit of reflection, I understood that the reason I was not including people in the process was that I was afraid of their objections and additional suggestions and comments that would just hold me back and slow down my work as I needed to implement them. That was huge for me to be honest to myself about it. So to get over this, I had to realize that if somebody is actually impacted by your work, whatever the project is you run, they deserve to have a say in the process. They need to be heard, even if at the end their needs might not be met. Sometimes the decision is out of your hands. But once I saw that weakness in my own way of working, I forced myself, yes, in the beginning it will require working against your nature, I forced myself to change my approach. I started making a list of those people who needed to be consulted because they were impacted by my project. And I also included those in the list who can be obstacles or put hurdles in my way. I got slowly better at that. Any good project manager knows that stakeholder mapping is important. But well, I wasn't a project manager back then, and so I had to learn the hard way. You see, that's just an example of me struggling with something, identifying the internal root cause, aka my mindset, and taking actions to solve the problem. No, we are not supposed to focus on our weaknesses. And yes, we should focus on and build our strengths. I totally agree with that. Your strengths are what is making you you. If you simply would fix weaknesses, you would just rise up to average. And in the same logic, I totally disagree when people ask you to identify and work on your weaknesses. There are some things you are naturally not good at, and others will always be better at. But what we talked about in this video is different. We talked about weaknesses being the gateway to your soul. Your weaknesses teach you a lot about yourself, you know. Your struggles are showing you your limitations that you need to investigate and be aware of. If you are not good at communications, it is not simply about I'll take a communications course. That's a superficial fixing of the weakness. It's like applying a band-aid. Instead, it is about digging deeper into why you are not good at comms. What are you afraid of and avoiding? Maybe you're worried about people not listening. Maybe you're afraid of being rejected. Maybe you fear people will make fun of you. You don't need to become the #1 motivational speaker, but you need to understand how to not let this limitation govern your life and cripple your ambitions. Working on the cause and not only the symptom will change everything for you. I hope you enjoyed today's video, my friend, and I hope you liked it. Quite some food for thought today, isn't it? Let me know in the comments below whether you have any questions. I would be more than happy to answer them. And if you like my content, if you like getting a different perspective on things and rather unconventional and thought-provoking advice, then consider subscribing to not miss a thing. I thank you for watching very much, my friend, and until the next time, all the best.